You are listening to the Tallest Kaiju Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Please welcome Joshua Brafman to today's episode where we're going to discuss Godzilla's Revenge, aka All Monsters Attack. Joshua Brafman is an author who has a really great kaiju novel out right now called One Massive Step. Please check it out. Link in the description. Enjoy. All right, so first things first, what was your introduction to kaiju cinema and how has that affected your trajectory as an artist?
Well, my very first exposure to, I want to say, kaiju cinema, or, the giant monsters, probably Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, which I had a VHS of it as a kid, and it was the Godzilla versus the Cosmic Monster, with this really, really cool artwork. I love that video. Rewatched that video so many times. I actually slept with the VHS. That's how much I enjoyed it. Back when I was like 4 or 5. But as an artist, just the way that, well, it's kaiju cinema is something that I've respected and admired so much that I myself felt like, I can't tackle that as an artist. I'm not qualified enough until the day that I went to G-Fest for the first time, and I saw all these other artists, were making their own sort of independent kaiju stuff, and I'm like, well, why haven't I done that yet? I just kind of springboarded from there and wrote my first kaiju novel, One Massive Step, which is heavily influenced by all sorts of kaiju eiga, namely everything from Monarch Legacy of Monsters to things as offbeat as Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, and Godzilla 1998 of all things. I guess the way that kaiju cinema has influenced me is that, you tell such global stories with these casts of, with all these different, kaiju cinema can be anything. And it's like, you can ascribe almost any genre, you could put kaiju in it, and as long as you're telling it the right way, it makes sense. Like, I saw at G-Fest a short film called Kaiju Girl, which is literally just these high school girls living with the fact that there's a kaiju attack happening in like the next town over, and like just the day-to-day of like how stuff changes until eventually the kaiju gets to them. And it's like, that's such like a weird, isolated story, but you can tell it because that's just how broad or not broad is probably the wrong term, but that's just how expansive you can be with kaiju cinema.
Yeah, and with how expansive it is, something that I do give props to, like the monsterverse, is it is world spanning. It's worldwide, world spanning. I meant to say, where it really takes you everywhere. And I will say I haven't fully read One Massive Step. I have it right next to me actually, because
Oh, wow.
I think that talking to the creator before getting into it, I think that helps build like some good context and more appreciation for it. But I noticed that it takes place in like Vietnam, right? There's some things going on in Vietnam, and I just, yeah, like what you said about kaiju in general. It really is this thing that, it kind of it happens everywhere. And I
Yeah,
really like that.
it's yeah. In one massive step, it takes place at both in Vietnam and in the Philippines. I picked those specific areas because of their unique geographical location to one another, and because they each have their own history with the military, with occupation, with the presence of perhaps nuclear materials in certain aspects. The Bikini Atoll is not super far away from where the Philippines are,
Right.
so that comes into play there. But yeah, and so really, it's it's all about exploring the different types of narratives that you can go with, because like the the thing that sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, like depending on on your protagonist, on who the humans are, that's what's going to anchor your story. Like Miki Sagusa in the '90s Godzilla films, had this connection with Godzilla, and that was like the through line for those films. Uh, and in one massive step, we kind of have an homage to that uh, in Mickey Valmerida, uh, who has some sort of connection with the kaiju themselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you also, so you mentioned this earlier as well about G Fest. I That's pretty funny because the first G Fest I've ever been to, which is crazy because I've been a Godzilla fan my whole life, and even one of my cousins said when he was a kid he went to G Fest, to which I'm like, well, where the hell was my invite, you know? But that's
Yeah.
actually where I had met you and where I picked up One Massive Step. So, how long have you been going to G Fest?
Oh well, that G Fest that I was at, that was maybe my third G Fest that I've been to. It was the first one where I'd ever, gotten up the gumption or the ability to actually, sell my own stuff there.
Oh, cool.
I had previously premiered One Massive Step at Kaiju Brooklyn in May, and then I sold it at DoverCon in Delaware in June, and then rounding it out at G Fest in July. It was kind of like a mini book tour type deal. But yeah, I've been going to G Fest for 3 years, and that's where I met a lot of these really talented kaiju creatives like Carter Allen, who did the interior artwork for One Massive Step. He also does his own independent kaiju comic series called Ectairon about uh, this giant kaiju that's a rooster, uh, and it kind of like parodies other
I think,
stuff
did
like
he have a
that.
booth last year?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, okay, because I
I
remember the
was sitting
giant.
with him, I think.
Oh, that's it. Yep. Okay, I met him then. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I remember the
Yeah,
giant rooster. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And then, but but yeah, like um, I'm really grateful to my boss Will Brown over at Region 99, RGN 99. For having me on as a reporter. Uh, I've been working with him for about 8 9 years now, and him sending me there with my reporter credentials allowed me to make a lot of those really nice connections and get to really ask uh, pick people's brains about like the creative process and stuff, and that really that also really helped kickstart my own creative road process when it comes to the kaiju stuff.
Yeah, that and I think that, to your point, that's a really great way to go after it in the beginning with that, with that mindset to really get into it. And with being at these different, I guess, kaiju conventions, right? Do you have a preference? Do you have a favorite? Is there one where you're like, okay, this is the best one?
Well, it's tough to say because each of the conventions kind of has their own merit, or not merit, because every convention has merit, obviously,
Right.
but each of them has their own strength. Strength is what I meant to say. And so, like, Kaiju Brooklyn is really great for like the more intimate space, and the smaller scale stuff. You get to really talk to the people who come to your booth, and get to maybe make a new friend. DoverCon, uh, DoverCon's outside, and it's much more like a flea market type deal. But I got a lot of sales at DoverCon. That was the most successful, like, financially, I was. But then of course G Fest. That's the show, right?
Hmm.
It's like that's the big time, and it's like it's almost intimidating, being at a table at G Fest, just because of the legacy of that, and how big, how much, like, that is, and like you kind of get a little bit of imposter syndrome, because I'm sitting here, like, with my book, and over in the other corner is Matt Frank, who's been doing this for like 15 years, and so I'm like, okay.
Right. Yeah, I think it's cool though because either way you're getting something out of each of these, and either way it's helping you kind of not only work on selling your material, but you're always networking, right? You're always meeting other creatives, and that always leads to potential collaborations in the future. And I think that something like that is the best part about conventions, when they have those artist alley type places where all the artists get to kind of have their tables next to each other.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's why I was so disappointed that G Fest has kind of minimized their artist alley over the years. Uh, to whether, like, for whatever reason, I don't really know the specifics, but I've heard I've heard from people that the artist alley used to be huge, but now it's less huge. So I guess that's why it was even more special that I actually got to be in the room, doing stuff.
Yeah, and I
But
wonder if it's a matter of like just not as many interested kaiju centric or related creatives that want to join. Maybe it's just
mm,
less interest over time. But I think with the MonsterVerse ramping up again, I think that does help, at least from obviously America. And I think Godzilla -1, that was
oh
huge.
yeah,
So I'm sure that's why, like last year when I went, a lot of people. But I think, yeah, maybe we'll start to see more of a resurgence with that. And I imagine that the artist alley is kind of determined by how many signups they get, right? Because like,
probably.
or maybe it's a mix of both. They decide what their max is going to be, and then they see if they hit that max, and then maybe next year they kind of see, okay, can we get a little bit more? Do we need less? Whatever.
Yeah, and then yeah, the whole book, actually, there were the first draft of One Massive Step was actually made in 1 month, uh, back in November of last year, uh, just because I hadn't uh, I hadn't created anything. Well, I had spent, rather, the last, like, 3 years trying to get my thesis manuscript published, and I was revising it, and I even hired, like, a editor, uh, to look at my work, and, like, maybe tell me, like, hey, this is why agents aren't picking up the phone or whatnot. And he basically told me that my work had, as it was unpublishable.
Oh shit.
And yeah, which is kind of a nightmare, So, but he also did, in addition to delivering that death blow, he did point out very useful like character notes about like what wasn't working, and those are the notes that I took going into One Massive Step, and I just kind of furiously wrote that whole thing in 1 month, and then spent the rest of the year, or I spent the next like 6 months making it into the book that you now hold in your hands. So it's like it's a so it's a lot of it is a work of rebellion, or almost not spite, because
Right.
because it was absolutely because I wouldn't be writing like 20 pages a day if I didn't love what I was writing.
Right.
So I and in One Massive Step, I kind of approach it from all angles, which is why there's two different narratives. Like there's the human versus kaiju angle, which is what happens in Vietnam.
Right.
That one is very much inspired by Monarch: Legacy of Monsters and Godzilla -1 and Godzilla 2014. And then you have on the opposite the Philippines side, which is much more influenced by 90s Godzilla, by almost by Godzilla the series, the animated cartoon from the 90s.
The best thing to come from the 90s Godzilla, I think, the 98 Godzilla.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That, like, I think, like, that is, to date, for my money, the best animated adaptation of Godzilla.
Oh, easily.
And it's both amazing and sad that that's still true in 2026.
Yeah, I feel that.
But yeah, and so like that one, the Philippine side also has the kaiju fighting kaiju side. So the goal of One Massive Step is just, or rather, not a goal, but really the thing about One Massive Step is it's just my love letter to the kaiju genre as a whole. Trying to express what everything I love about it. So that's why it's this big, huge narrative that spans two different countries, and then eventually ties together.
Yeah, and I love the ambition, and I think that when you're kind of, so the small scale stuff I love equally as much as I love the ambitious stuff, and I think that one short that you brought up, Kaiju Girl or whatever, that's something that I would also love to see. Like there's no in between. It's either a super ambitious story or give us like this very small contained story. Like those are my favorite types of kaiju things to see. Like how Shin Godzilla is a whole bunch of boardroom conversations. I love that shit. I think that it's such an interesting take on the whole thing. So I really appreciate your ambition.
That was like Shin Godzilla was so good because I remember showing it to like everybody I could way back when, just because I'm like, look, this is exactly what it's like when people tried to deal with COVID for the first time.
Right.
And it's like, oh, this is like it gained like a renewed relevance almost, unfortunately, in 2020 and beyond, really. And it is, but yeah, like I love the small scale stuff and the big stuff. It's like that's my favorite part about Godzilla as a franchise, is that Godzilla can be anything, whether it's the grim reminder of the nuclear bomb, or a fever dream in a little boy's imagination.
And speaking of which, do you want to introduce us to the subject of today's episode and give us a little rundown about what this movie's about?
Oh, absolutely. So today on. Um, so today we're going to be discussing All Monsters Attack, aka Godzilla's Revenge, which is widely considered to be one of the worst Godzilla movies ever produced. However, not by me. I stand by the fact that Godzilla's Revenge, All Monsters Attack, actually has a lot of merit, uh, and I will, and that is the hill that I will die on. May not be proud to die on, but I'll die. So our story follows a young boy. I believe his name is Ichiro. Yeah,
I think so.
I don't remember. That's a bad note. But we follow a young boy. He's a latchkey kid, and he's getting bullied by his peers. He only really has like maybe one friend or one person who follows him around, a little girl, and his parents are never home, and all he has is his dreams of Godzilla and Monster Island, and then eventually he gets kidnapped in some sort of jewel heist thing, which I don't really. Which one of those things is not like the other. I feel like we got a little off track here, but it is, and of course you've got the hallmarks of the late '70s Godzilla, where with all the stock footage they use. Uh, but you also have the introduction of Gabara, one of the most and also least interesting kaiju come out of the Godzilla pantheon.
Yeah,
That's your general overview.
right. And it's interesting to me because when Godzilla was already Godzilla at this point was already starting to lean towards being a little bit more family friendly with monster fights and everything and all that. This is considered to be like the first official project to be geared towards kids. Which when you watch it in comparison with the other Godzilla flicks around the time, it becomes pretty obvious. And Ichiro, I think that is the name. I think that is the kid's name. So you had that correct.
Okay, because I watched it last night, and even now, I'm like, oh, I'm on camera. Oh no, but yeah, he's and growing up, this is just a personal anecdote of mine. I very much felt a kinship with Ichiro just because I had parents who worked all the time to provide for the family. My dad worked really late hours because he owned his own business, and the one thing that we would do together is we would go out to the movie to the rental to Palmer Video and rent Godzilla movies, watch those, and so I it felt like I was Ichiro, and because I didn't have a lot of have a lot of friends, a lot of no nobody wants to talk to the kid who's just yelling about Godzilla, like to the point where I kid you not, my elementary school teacher called my mom and was like, Miss Brafman, you might want to talk to your son. He's a little bit too invested in Godzilla. And my mom's response was, well, everyone has to specialize in something.
Right.
And so, it's like I feel like growing up watching this movie, it's a lot of it is, that Ichiro himself could be a self-insert for the kids watching at home. Like I would have loved to have gone to Monster Island and have Minya be my friend, and have Godzilla kind of acknowledge me, maybe sort of. But it's like, and just the clever ways that they kind of splice stuff together, where like Ichiro is stuck in a hole, and then all of a sudden you see Kamakura's coming over him, like walk over the hole, and it's like it really makes you feel immersed in that smaller scale story, which is what this is. It feels Godzilla's Revenge to me feels like how the old Wallace and Gromit shorts do. And I know that's a weird comparison, but stay with me here. So in Wallace and Gromit, there are very small scale stories, and because of their budget, whenever they go out into town, it's completely empty. Like there's nobody there, and that's for a lot of Godzilla's Revenge. Like I feel like you could count the scenes where there's more than like 3 people on screen on one hand. So in that way, it's a much more smaller scale, more intimate story, and you kind of really get into can really get into Ichiro's headspace and like how alone he feels.
Right. And I do think that, one of the angles of this that I actually appreciate is with the main character of Ichiro. Even though this movie came out decades later, but I recently watched Gamera the Brave, or I think it's called Gamera the Brave.
Oh yeah.
And that one is very much like a kid's movie where it puts us into the perspective of a kid that has this relationship with Gamera. And I think that All Monsters Attack kind of was the template for that, if you think about it, right? Because I'm pretty sure that's the first time that you did have that very like child perspective focus of to tell the story through. And I think that, there is an element of that when you do tap that into kids at the time that watch it, or when you're a kid and you see All Monsters Attack, I guarantee every kid liked the movie. And it's only when people got older that they might look at it and they'll be like, oh, this is kind of, this isn't as great. But like even if I have it, at the lower tier of Godzilla films, I could watch it and I could be like, okay, yeah, I see what they're going for. And I think that, there's a lot here to appreciate. And, when I see other movies similar, like, Gamera the Brave, and how that child perspective adds an element to it that, it adds a charm to it, and it feels unique because you don't get that a lot. You get very much the military type of perspective to see these movies through. And I think that there's a coming of age element to that I think, it adds more.
Yeah, like I agree 100%. There are so many films in the Godzilla franchise where you only see it from the military's perspective, or from a particular soldier's perspective, because those are the first responders. Those are the people that react to Godzilla. But so it's so rare that we have films where there are characters with direct relationships to Godzilla. Like that's one of the reasons why like I appreciated Miki Segusa in the 90s films. Why I hold up Ichiro, or shield him rather, because without him, he's the link that kind of gets kids into Godzilla. Because Godzilla's Revenge, not a great movie, I know, but with the amount of and it is a clip show kind of a deal, but for kids that's fantastic, because there's a lot of moments in earlier Godzilla movies that kids aren't going to pay attention to. Like the human bits may not engage your kids, at least not the 5 to 8 year olds.
Right.
So like those kids just want to see the big dinosaur, and that's what this movie delivers on. It just kind of gives you an overview of like what Godzilla is, or what you can expect to see Godzilla doing in these other films
Right.
that he's in, and a lot of what I respect Godzilla's Revenge for is the amount of attention that it got. Not even like now when I'm talking, not even like now when I'm talking about like how everybody hates it, but like when Godzilla was first being brought over to America back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, Godzilla's Revenge was the movie that people aired on TV constantly, like in those movie monster Saturdays, where you like that is how a huge chunk of people knew Godzilla, including my dad, who he and his brother would watch Godzilla movies on Saturday mornings, and my brother would my uncle would make these little clay figurines of the monsters, and they would play with them together. And it's like that that's the stuff that matters. It's about the bringing the bringing the kids in, bringing that new generation in. Thankfully, with today, we have the MonsterVerse, which is a more modern, action-packed take that I feel like can still attract kids. Because you've still got all the cool monster fights and everything. But back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, we didn't have that. It was Godzilla's Revenge.
Right. And I think they had that I never watched it, but they had that older animated series, right? Where Godzilla was
Oh
very
yeah.
green, right? Wasn't he very green in
Oh
that
yeah,
one?
he's actually played by the same voice actor as Scooby Doo.
Oh, really?
Uh, yeah, which is, and they didn't, for whatever reason, instead. I don't know if it was because Toho wouldn't let them use the roar, or if because Hanna Barbera didn't want to use the roar, but they just had Scooby Doo's voice actor going, and
Oh, that's so funny.
and and they had him shooting laser beams from his eyes and fire breath. That was wacky, and but it's like these are the these are the things that keep Godzilla in the public consciousness, and that especially when there were no new Godzilla movies coming out, all you had were the older movies, and stuff like Godzilla's Revenge keeps people thinking about it. It's like how people denigrate the MST3K reviews of the Gamera movies because of how ridiculous they are. But like, I'd say what you will about it, but for a while that's all we had with Gamera until
Yeah.
until the Heisei trilogy and then Rebirth.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's a lot of old movies that really it was Mystery Science Theater that, had us to actually that was our only way of interfacing with those movies. So I think that's a really good point. But I mean, I do love the Heisei trilogy of Gamera, and I only watched that recently. It was a couple months ago. It was my first time ever. I've always been like I think mostly just all Godzilla fan. Very little Ultraman, but yeah, that was my first time. But really
Yeah,
quick,
oh,
oh,
sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say with animated series. So I've never watched Singular Point. Is that any good on Netflix? Godzilla Singular Point,
Well,
if you've seen it.
I've watched it now twice. First time I watched it by myself, front to back, and I'm like, this is great, right up until episode 5, and then the the technobabble starts, and it doesn't stop, and I get really really confused, uh, to the point where like they all the way up to the climax. I'm like, wait, what is happening? I don't understand how they just. Uh, but then I watched it a second time with a friend of mine, uh, Stephen, who I also met at G Fest, and we've been friends ever since. We kept in contact. He's a great guy, but he studied. You know, he's a physics and science major, and so he studied like all the stuff that they talk about in Singular Point. He studied in school, so I had him watch the show with me, and occasionally I'd pause it and be like, "Okay, Stephen, help me. What happened?" And he would actually explain like, "Oh, this is what this means," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." And then, but then of course, half the time he's like, "Look, man, I'm not really sure what's happening either."
So there's
Or
at
he's
least
like,
elements of it where there is some, I don't know, where it is like legitimate, at least in a theoretical sense. If you had him who was like explaining what was going on, they're at least tapping into a little bit of real science there.
yeah, and I mean, like, there is a genuinely great story in Singular Point up to a point,
Right.
because like the initial appearance of Rodan, and like how how they deal with that, and the fallout of that is really fascinating. I really appreciated that. The new version of Anguirus they have in Singular Point is really interesting, with new abilities that I would have assigned to Anguirus, and that's really interesting. But then they just kind of copy Shin Godzilla for Godzilla's appearance, and also mix it a little bit with Freddy Fazbear for some reason. At least that was the vibe I got from Godzilla Ultima. But that's beside the point. It's frustrating because, like, again, the first 5 episodes are of Singular Point. Like, the first half is really, really solid, compelling television. But the problem is that the writing is just so complicated that you do need kind of a translator in order to fully comprehend what's going on. At least I did. Granted, I'm not the smartest man, but that is, for my money, it's like, I'd say it's worth a watch. Just know you might get lost.
Right. And it leads me to another question, which I want to bring up in this episode, because, when you ask people their least favorite or the worst Godzillas, they'll talk All Monsters Attack or the Godzilla Earth trilogy from Netflix. What are your thoughts of those? Because that one, those are movies that people like. I don't think anyone in the fandom really likes at all.
Well, I watched the first Godzilla anime film, Planet of the Monsters, and it was just kind of a nothing film to me. Like, I watched it and I'm like, okay, I don't really know why you'd want to continue with these characters for 2 more movies.
Right.
Like, I admittedly, I never watched 2 or 3 of the anime trilogy. Although I hear the third one with Ghidorah is good.
I was just going to bring that up.
But I have personally never watched them, just because the first one was so unengaging for me that I'm like, okay, I mean, maybe I'm being unfair. I need to, if I'm really a Godzilla fan, I should be watching all of them.
Right.
So, I should give City on the Edge of Battle and The Planet Eater a fair shot.
Yeah, I think, I feel you with what I remember from these movies, but one of my favorite things just in all of Godzilla is Void Ghidorah. I love the name. Void Ghidorah is just such a dope name, I think. And the fact that, like, just the mythos behind that incarnation of Ghidorah is so cool to me. And I didn't even think about anything else in those movies because of that. I was just like, that's so dope. Like, coming in through like a wormhole or whatever, and just so super long. It was really cool to see. I want them to do that
Oh
in
yeah,
a film. Like maybe with a follow up to Shin Godzilla, give us some other more cosmic horror related incarnations of these creatures. You know what I mean? Because that's what Void Ghidorah
yeah.
scene that gave me cosmic horror vibes, Lovecraftian vibes, and I'm like, that's what we need more of in Godzilla. And Shin Godzilla kind of gives
Oh,
us that too.
yeah, and Singular Point does as well, where it's like the that version of Godzilla is just like kind of leaking out into our universe
Oh,
through the
sweet.
Singular Point. It's like that's why it's like having Stephen with me helped me to fully comprehend exactly what was happening,
Yeah.
because it's like the Godzilla that we're viewing from the Godzilla that comes through in Singular Point is not the real Godzilla. It's just the Godzilla that we can comprehend.
Right.
And like simply by existing, Godzilla is altering the terrain around him with that red mist
Yeah.
in Singular Point to make it more livable for him and make it more like his home universe. And like that sort of cosmic entity stuff is really, really intriguing, engage, really, really hooks me, you know? So it's like, I definitely, I definitely love the concept of Void Ghidorah from what I've heard, you know, coming out of a black hole and
Mm-hmm.
just being this long, unknowable thing.
Yeah, it's super awesome, and like I'll always champion that. Kind of like you like to be the shield for Ichiro and All Monsters Attack. I feel like I kind of got that role for which I don't think a lot of people disagree with me, but I will always champion Void Ghidorah, and I love that version. But taking it back to All Monsters Attack real quick. Um, Something I noticed on this rewatch is they should use that face for Manila as a serial killer or something because it is so unsettling. Something so
I,
uncanny about it, man. I don't know.
yeah, like I don't know. Like it's so funny because like I try at one point I tried to have a friend of mine watch all the Godzilla movies with me because she wanted to introduce me to Dragon Age, to all three at the time Dragon Age games, and I'm like, all right, well if you want to introduce me to the thing you love, I got to introduce you to the thing I love.
Right.
And when we got to Minya, she was like, "Oh God, get it away from me!" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? He's adorable." And it's like I don't know, like I don't know what it is. I guess I have face blindness from Minya because
Yeah.
like I don't know. To this day, like I still think he looks cute. I don't even know why because like objectively, well, especially when he's a newborn in Son of Godzilla, that thing needs to go away. But
Yeah. Oh, so the
but like
the proper pronunciation is Minya?
oh well I don't know because I've
Okay.
heard it both ways.
I just say
So
Manila because
I
that's
just
how it looks to me, but I don't know
well because I've said Minya because like that's what I've heard that's what I've heard growing up. But I could be entirely wrong. This could be like but but that's just what I did. But like I guess what helped in Minya's case or Manila's case was in a weird way the voice that he has in All Monsters Attack.
it sounds like a
Specifically,
donkey or a seal, one of those,
well, like
right?
like yeah, like the the voice he has in the English version,
Oh.
where he's like Godzilla says I should fight my own battles. You see, like I don't know there's something so disarming about that. I guess because and this is again dating myself here. I grew up on Barney, so like to me, like even though this predates Barney by a significant margin, Minya sounded like Barney, so I'm like, oh, it's just a friend. He's just He's just another. He's just gray. He's just gray Barney. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. Nobody who sounds like that could want to hurt anybody.
Yeah, I love that. I love that connection too, because I mean, I was a little bit of a Barney kid growing up, but that was in the '90s. I think once the 2000s hit, I just totally forgot about him. But yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it, because I mean, in both cases, you've got this kind of disarming, child-friendly dinosaur, right? That has, it sounds like,
Yeah.
a similar voice. They both had a similar voice to each other.
Oh yeah, it's very bizarre. When I first made that connection, I'm like, it's just so well because it's I'm fumbling over my words again. It's not good podcast material. I apologize.
No, it's
But
it's authentic, your authentic, emotions and feelings and ideas on this subject. And that's what makes a good podcast, is when it's just raw, authentic, just like, all right, this is what I fucking think about it. You know what I mean? It's great.
but yeah, and like just having somebody to kind of guide you through Monster Island, which is not a safe place for children, as Son of Godzilla will show you. Although Son of Godzilla, it was Solgale Island, I think.
Yeah, I think this was
specifically Monster Island.
This was the introduction, right, to Monster Island. This was like the first time they officially called it that.
If not here, then in Destroy All Monsters. Although Destroy All Monsters may have come after this.
No, I think it was before. I'm pretty sure it was before this. It predated this. I think it was like 67 or something, and this was 69 or something. I don't know.
But technically, Destroy All Monsters is last in the canon, so
right.
So All Monsters Attack predates it that way.
Right. It could be a prequel in that sense, right?
But yeah, like that's a very important aspect of Godzilla, is monster, and that endures. It was kept that way throughout the rest of the franchise, and even into other adaptations like Godzilla the series. They even had their own actually.
Yeah, and that you cut out. Were you talking about the '98 Godzilla animated series?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, my internet's bad.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, the concept of Monster Island, came from here, and it endured all the way into other adaptations like the '98 cartoon.
Yeah, and I wonder. So we've got Skull Island in the MonsterVerse. Do you think they're gonna give us like a? Well, I mean we've got Hollow Earth and we've got Skull Island. Do you think they'll ever give us an actual Monster Island?
I'm not sure, because like I thought Skull Island was going to become Monster Island, but then they kind of like brushed it aside in Godzilla versus Kong. They're like, oh no, it's unlivable now. Never mind. And I'm like, okay. So I don't know. They seem pretty gung ho about the Hollow Earth idea, and I guess maybe in a way that's our Monster Island for the MonsterVerse, is just the Hollow Earth. But it would be nice if we could get like a definitive area for Godzilla to rest, above ground rather than just in the ocean.
Right.
In these films, maybe Supernova will give us that, but I don't know.
Yeah, which that is that this year or next year? Supernova, that's next year, right?
Oh,
2027.
Yeah, Supernova's next year. Monarch season 2 and -0 are this year.
Yeah, and Monarch is just in a couple weeks, which I'm so ecstatic for. It's at the end of February. Dude, MonsterVerse they have to stop coming out with the movie like not that long after like Japan releases one, because we had -1 and then a few months later we had New Empire, and it was like, just it's not -1 but now we're getting -0 and then Supernova. It's just, I don't know.
Well, to me, I'm like, oh hey, 2 cakes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
You're right. Yep.
it's like I'm eating good because like that again brings me to my earlier point where it's like you could have Godzilla both ways. Like I love that you can have the Japanese uh, like terrifying monolith of destruction at the same time as you can have Godzilla be this be this goofy monster that's just floating through gravity, uh, yelling at a monster that spews ice from its mouth.
Yeah.
And it's and now we're getting Space Godzilla, so we're going whole hog in Supernova. I'm so ready.
Yeah, and yeah, I do want to say I love MonsterVerse, even the weaker ones, which New Empire probably my least favorite, but I mean that zero gravity fight, I was into that. I was like, "Oh, this is dope. Okay, cool." And then everything with the monsters in that one specifically, I mean, I was in the theater. I was hyped up, man. I was like,
Yeah,
this is what I come to these movies for. The Japanese ones, I go for, there to be like a really good movie around it too. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's not
yeah,
to fully knock it because I don't think they're terrible, but I will say that um, I don't go into it excited about what all the human stuff is going to look like. But with the Japanese ones, they especially between Shin and -1, they've made it compelling on all ends, and but
yeah,
like you said, we're having 2 cakes.
yeah.
It's
And I
not.
mean,
I
like,
would rather have this than have nothing. You know what I mean? I love
yeah,
how spoiled we are.
and I mean, we did get one perfect MonsterVerse movie, and that was Kong Skull Island.
Oh, that you
Because
think that's the
for my money, that's the perfect MonsterVerse film, which sucks because like I love Godzilla. I want Godzilla to have the best movie. Why does Kong get the best movie? But like for my money, objectively, Kong Skull Island is the best MonsterVerse movie, specifically because it has the best human stories in it, and the best resolution to those human stories. Like
that's true.
John C. Riley's Hank Marlowe is such a compelling character. I actively wish that we could have gotten a prequel series with him and Gunpei, him and Gunpei Ikari on Monster on. There I go, on Monster Island,
Skull
on
Island,
Skull
same thing.
Island, like on Skull Island, learning how to overcome the hatred that came from war to live together, and then until eventually Gunpei dies at the hand of a skull crawler. Like that's so good. That concept is so good. I wish that was its own thing, and that's only part of Kong Skull Island.
You know what?
It's like
I'm really glad that you're saying this because I don't have Skull Island as like my favorite, but as a character piece, like yeah, you have this ragtag group of people and each of them are developed uniquely, and you've got that guy who's like writing letters to his family back home, and I mean he just gets killed halfway through.
yeah, I mean that was. It's funny that because that was the guy. That's Toby Kebbell,
Yep.
the motion capture for Kong. So I feel like they kind of put him in there to get him a little extra paycheck.
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool that they did that with him because he was Koba in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, right? I'm pretty sure he did the motion capture for Koba.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
And then you got, and then that becomes a recurring motif throughout the film, is that they have the soldiers keep going, "Dear Billy, this place is hell," or
yeah.
"Dear," or "Dear Billy," and then they say something, and then like just the way that Skull Island is presented in that film is so fascinating. Like the instant that somebody gets speared by a leg from that big spider
Yeah.
in the bamboo forest, I'm like, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Like anything could be literally anything on this island. Like it's such a good moment.
And
But
then Sam Jackson even. Yeah, Sam Jackson had a really great arc as the human villain. They really fleshed him out. Yeah, I love that. Sorry, you were saying something?
the so then to your point, what would you say is the strongest MonsterVerse film?
So my personal favorite is the first Godzilla versus Kong, but
Hmm.
um, and this is an appreciation I've been growing for Gareth Edwards, right? Gareth Evans is the Raid. Gareth Edwards is Godzilla, I think. But his
Yeah.
2014 Godzilla, I've grown to appreciate a hell of a lot more than when I first saw it, and it's because I love the how he the suspense of everything, like, just how he builds it, how Godzilla is this, force of nature, and just the focus on how everybody's reacting to it. It adds this mysticism behind it, and it makes you feel like, oh shit, like this, this is going on. And um I love the breath scene in that one. It's not as
Oh
good as
yeah.
minus
Well,
one, but that one was great.
well, it's like you also have to remember, like, I have a complicated relationship with 2014 because it's like when it first came out, I loved it. But then as more MonsterVerse movies came out, it's like it kind of muddied the waters a little bit. And like my, I but like there are definite strengths to that film, which Gareth Edwards knows how to set a scene.
Yeah.
Uh, like the Hawaii airport scene is
Oh yeah.
still one of the most iconic entrances for Godzilla ever made. The only downside being that we don't get to see the fight that happens right after that.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that, and it's funny because they took that information, and in Godzilla King of the Monsters, they gave us the good fights and all these good creature things, but then they dropped the ball even more on the character moments, on the humans.
Yeah,
And
it's
so one of my favorite, since you talked about entrances in King of the Monsters, Rodan's entrance is awesome. Um,
oh yeah,
and the
like
way that he does that
Rodan in
spin,
King of the
and he like
Rodan in King of the
destroys.
Monsters is the
Oh
coolest he's ever been.
yeah,
Like
fucking
I'm sorry, he's just like that's the that's the stuff I wanted to see more of in that movie. Like I just remember I just remember being upset at the particle effects in 2019 because it was harder for me to see stuff.
and even when I
And
like
maybe
I watch it on 4K, it's like distracting to still have the particle effects. It's like
yeah, like
the
and
clarity would be so much better for those fights and the how dark it gets. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, like don't get me wrong, I love the idea that Ghidorah literally brings a storm with him wherever he goes. I think that's a very cool idea, and again, lends back to that kind of alien eldritch horror stuff. But in practice, it's a little distracting.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, but yeah, and there is one thing that Godzilla's Revenge has over the MonsterVerse.
What's that?
MonsterVerse doesn't have giant condor.
Oh, I forgot about Giant Condor. The what is he in it for, like 2 seconds, right?
Yeah,
Giant
he's in
Condor
it for
comes down,
for
and
like maybe 45 seconds.
I just watched this video on Instagram. There's a page. I forgot what the page is, but they did like each birth. If your month is in this birthday, this is your Godzilla creature, and they say sorry about September, and then once September comes around, it's Giant Condor, and I was like, it's like, oh, that's funny. The most notorious. I wonder if they're gonna bring Giant Condor into the MonsterVerse at all as like a joke. You know what I mean?
I mean they could
We got Doug,
like
right?
like
Doug, is it Doug or Craig?
yeah, Doug. It's
Doug.
Doug.
Yeah.
I remember because I aggravated my friend Alex for months trying to troll around Target, trying to find the Doug toy from the new Empire, just because I'm like, I gotta have the Doug toy.
You gotta have Doug.
It
Yeah.
became kind of a meme where anytime I pass Target, I'm like, hey, I wonder if they have Doug, and Alex would just be like, I hate you so much.
Right. So I mean, they could do it. They could give us Giant Condor again.
Yeah,
I think big fans will appreciate it. Um, to some extent.
yeah.
But yeah, we did get that in All Monsters Attack. Yeah, there's there's a lot of things that movie gave us. But is it a donkey or is it a seal or a walrus or whatever for like Manila's
Oh,
like
for menu.
yeah
Oh
for
yeah. Well,
Minia.
I think it's. See, I think his like roar or whatever. I think it's a donkey,
Yeah,
but it
okay.
might be a combination of several animals. I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely hear donkey when he's
Yeah.
like running away. You know,
Yeah,
definitely.
I couldn't get that out of my head. I'm like, dude sounds like a donkey. And the reason I keep saying walrus
Yeah.
or seal, I'm pretty sure one of those have like a similar like bark to them, I thought. If you
Yeah,
want to
they
call it
do.
that. But
You're not wrong.
but yeah, it was so distracting. And I've been having on this YouTube marathon for Godzilla movies. And
Oh yeah.
right now Terror of Mechagodzilla's on. Before this it was
Huh.
Ibarra, Terror of the Deep
Oh
was
yeah.
on.
Oh yeah. I love it. I love Abira.
And
That's a.
is this inspired?
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'm showing a picture
I
from the book. This is from the book. It
yeah
looks like a crab-like
yeah.
creature or lobster.
That is for those of you who cannot see. That is a picture of Kingfisher, the pistol shrimp kaiju.
Oh, I love that. I love pistol shrimps. Such a
Yeah,
dope thing. And
like I was like, hey, you know, the pistol shrimp's that powerful when it's that small. What happens if you make it big?
yeah.
So the please look forward to that in One Massive Step and its subsequent sequels.
So
As
since we're getting at the end of the time here, and you just mentioned it, so this is your only book out, right? When should we
uh,
expect a follow up to this?
well, I am currently working on the sequel to One Massive Step, Two Giant Cries. Uh, that will ideally be available. Uh, I don't want to give any definite. Well, I'd like to say by next year. By next year, I'd like to have it done. Initially, I was gonna have it. I was gonna have try to have it done by G Fest this year. I don't think that's realistic, given given the given the time that I have. But anything could happen. Uh, the I also have other kaiju related stories. In like I have a short story published in Wild Hunt Press's Attack of the Kaiju Volume 3. It's at the tail end there. It's called Moving On. It's it's gotten some good press. I'm also working on two other short stories for future anthologies that'll be available at this year's G Fest. Uh, One of them is a more post-apocalyptic kaiju story, kind of like Mad Max, but with a kaiju twist.
Oh, very
And
cool.
and the other one is kind of like an homage to Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, uh, but
Nice.
with like an Ultraman spin on it. So that should be so. Those should be at the very least. Those will be out by July. Uh, we'll and yeah, the two giant cries should be out at latest next year, potentially G Fest.
That'd be a perfect place for it, right? Um but which um kaiju attack of the kaiju volume was it that you're in?
Oh, it was Attack of the Kaiju Volume 3,
Volume 3,
and
okay.
both that and One Massive Step can be found on Amazon. Uh, One Massive Step, you've got the softcover, hardcover, or ebook uh, for whatever version you'd prefer. I should also mention that the ebook doesn't have any DRM in it, so you can put it on whatever device you want. I'm not about to limit, where you can have it.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Spread it far and wide.
I love that. Yeah. Cause yeah, that's something that, for a while I was only familiar with Jeremy Robinson, but going to G Fest really just opens up like, hey, there's other novelists out there that are trying to capture these kaiju stories. So I always want to champion you guys and support, even though I haven't finished reading it, but I'm gonna be working on it. It's just my TBR in general, man, is just huge.
No, that's fair. It is a dense book. Like it is. It's not a short read.
Yeah, it's like 500 something pages, I think, right? Yeah,
that sounds right.
Yeah, like 560-ish or whatever.
But yeah, I had a lot to say, and I said it. It's about 564 pages. Soft cover, hardcover is a little less pages, just because it's a bigger size. So right. Bigger size, less pages.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, then awesome. I just want to thank you, Sean, for having me on. It was great to get to talk kaiju with you. Get to say my piece about All Monsters Attack.
Of course. But yeah, thank you so much for jumping on, man. Loved talking with you, and yeah, I'll see you around next G Fest that you go to, because that's gonna be something I try to do yearly at this point.